Tonight, Michael Cohen's case against Donald Trump. Did the president's former personal attorney just provide a roadmap on how to take Trump down? And is the biggest threat to Trump actually now not Mueller, but the Southern District of New York? We'll ask a former federal prosecutor those questions and more. Plus, it wasn't just Cohen. All told, this week was a week I think we're going to remember for this president in a bad way, from Korea to separated kids and so much more. We'll review it all and ask, is this really okay? Is this really the government and the president that we signed up for? Plus, we have a special RFL presentation. We take you back 80 years to a white nationalist rally in, of all places, Madison Square Garden. We'll track the parallels of hate from then to now, and we will air the Oscar-nominated documentary A Night at the Garden, and we'll speak with its director. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to RFL. I am Richard French. A lot to get to on what always seems to be busy Fridays. We begin where we have focused so much of our time on this week, and that is Michael Cohen, his testimony before Congress, and the legal headaches that it has caused his former boss, Donald Trump. His old personal attorney may have caused his client significant damage. We'll get into what that is tonight. By now, you've all heard of the damning clips, like, for example, this one.
I am ashamed because I know what Mr. Trump is. He is a racist, he is a con man, and he is a cheat.
Let's get right to our analysis, and for that, we turn to good friend to the program, Roland Riopel. Roland, an attorney with Circus and Riopel in New York. He's also a former federal prosecutor. Roland, it's interesting. I looked just before we started tonight at some poll numbers, and by 2-to-1 margins, the American public thinks the president committed financial fraud, and the American public thinks the president is a racist. And we just collectively shrug like that's a new normal right now. It's amazing when you heard the testimony what didn't get asked because people had so much other to focus on. And I begin with some, at least to me, of the jaw droppers, or at least the confirmations of what we thought. He had to cancel checks. Basically, Trump reimbursed him for the hush payments, and whether or not that's a campaign finance violation we'll get into. Trump's lawyers helped him basically shape false testimony before he went before Congress, and that there are more active investigations into the Southern District, which we'll talk about more. I mean, there's a buffet to pick from, but my God, what it says potentially about our president and the problems that he has looming in front of him.
Yes, Richard, you and I have observed before on this show that it just seems that Donald Trump is one of those people who just can't do anything the right way. And he's led a long life of skirting the law, and it seems to be coming back to haunt him at this point.
You earlier today, and we're going to be running this piece this coming Monday, walked around Dominic Carter through the Southern District of New York. And in many ways, you've been saying this for a while, but I think it's starting to dawn on the broader public that while the Mueller report will be significant in many ways, there is greater peril for this president at the Southern District because they can go wherever they want, right?
Yes, I think the real risk to Donald Trump is in the Southern District's investigation now. Because, Mr. Mueller has a very limited jurisdiction. He has a very limited number of things he can look into, report on, and charge people with. That's not true at the Southern District. Remember, they executed a search warrant and got thousands and thousands of pages of material from Michael Cohen's office. They have Michael Cohen to lead them through it. They have Alan Weisselberg to lead them through it to some degree. They have other witnesses, I'm sure, who can help them find the crimes at the Trump Organization. And it appears that, they've got their focus set on the children as well as Mr. Trump. And it's my belief at this point, Richard, that it is more likely that the Southern District's investigation will be the one that forces Mr. Trump from office, if any investigation does, because if he leaves office, I think it will be because he will cut some kind of deal that permits him to grant pardons to his children, gets some kind of immunity from prosecution from them and for himself, and that will force him out. And that will come as a result of the Southern District's investigation, not the investigation by Mr. Mueller.
And we now know this is, if anyone wondered if it was hypothetical, Cohen said under oath that yes, there were other crimes when pressed by the Illinois congressman, and they are being actively investigated by the Southern District. So this is in perspective. This is afoot.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, there's been a lot of reporting about subpoenas to the inaugural committee. That's a real mess that I'm sure the Southern District is doing everything it can to untangle. And again, there are witnesses that can lead them right through that. Rick Gates was the chair of the inaugural committee. There's going to be documents about where the money went to, if it went to Ivanka or the children in some illicit way.
Also, the geography matters, right, Roland, in that the Trump organization, the Trump Foundation, a lot of the Trump properties, they're all in New York. And if he inflated valuations in one hand to secure loans and then also decrease the same valuations of the properties to lower his taxes, I mean, that's a double whammy of fraud.
Exactly. You could have an income tax evasion case built by the Southern District on those facts. You could have a straight financial fraud on the insurance companies built on those facts. You could have potential bank frauds built on the valuations of properties which are pledged for loans based on those facts. And by the way, those statutes, the bank loan fraud statutes often carry statutes of limitations for 10 years. So even if they can't indict Mr. Trump for that conduct now, they could do it if he's voted out of office in 2020, or perhaps even in 2024,
you know,
if he were to win re-election.
I thought there was an ominous quote at one point from Cohen, and certainly the people can rightfully question how much stock you want to put into what he said, given how often he's perjured himself. That all said, between the fact that I don't know the incentive to lie at this point, he turned at one point to some of his Republican questioners, and I think Congressman Jordan specifically, and he said, I did the same thing you're doing now for 10 years. I protected Mr. Trump. The more people follow him blindly, the more you're going to suffer the same consequences I did. Now, that's fraught with politics, but at the same point, no one that has gone to bat for this president has come out unscathed here. And I think if you just play the odds, that's how this thing looks like it's going to keep playing out.
I agree. You know, there's nobody who comes into the Trump orbit who doesn't end up besmirched in some way. John Kelly, you know, everybody who's ever gone through that administration has somehow gotten themselves into a mess based on Mr. Trump's conduct. And the Congress people who are supporting him, I think are going to find that that's true for them too. And frankly, I think the Democrats are counting on that to some degree. That's why, you know, you're now reading reporting that they're less interested in impeachment. They want to just keep the hearings going as long as they can, because every time you turn over a rock, you see creepy crawly stuff. Keep it going. Let the Republicans continue to try to defend this guy, and he'll take them all down. And he might.
And they also don't want to step on the Mueller probe. But Roland, so much to get into. Thank you so much, as always, making time for us on a Friday night. I appreciate it.
Pleasure to be with you, Richard.
All right, everybody. So should Trump be more worried about Mueller or the Southern District of New York? That's the question. You heard the answer from Roland here. He chose the latter. We're going to be looking into that as we speak. For more on Monday on RFL, Dominic Carter, he's turned a piece here with Roland and former prosecutors in that courthouse. They'll talk about the import of that office and just how unlimited basically their scope can be. Now, after a quick break, Oscar-nominated documentary director Marshall Curry, he'll join us. We'll discuss his latest project. It is called A Night at the Garden, and it tells a true story of a pro-Nazi white nationalist gathering 80 years ago to a packed house at MSG, also the eerie parallels to where we are today.